Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, successful, inspiring entrepreneurs. How are you today? I hope you all in good conditions. We are from Group 3 and welcome to our presentation. In this occasion, we will present some material about communication. But first of all, I want to introduce our group members. First, there is Ines Afilia Damayanti and her student number 1701. And then Rusdian Utami, her student number is 1716. And me myself, Retno Ayu Cahyaningtyas, and my student number is 1817. Talk about communication, talk about something important. Because we need to communicate with other as social humans, right? As aspiring entrepreneurs, we need to fully understand the essence of communication. Therefore, our presentation today covering first definition of communication, and then two, the component of communication, and then the purpose, and the last one is the type of communication. Okay, without any further ado, let's find out what is the definition and components of communication. According to etymology, communication comes from the Latin word, which means sharing or belonging together. So, what exactly is the meaning of communication? Communication is the process of delivering a message by someone to another to inform or to change attitude, opinions, or behaviors, either directly orally or indirectly through the media. Okay, everybody, after understanding the meaning of communication, let's continue talking about the component of communication. A communication is composed of 8 components. Let's discuss one by one from communication environment. There are 3 dimensions here, namely physical. The physical dimension is a space where communication takes place, real or tangible. And then the second one, socio-psychological. Examples of the socio-psychological are the structure of status relation between the parties involved, the roles people play, the cultural roles of the societies in which people communicate. Examples include feelings of friendship or hostility, and then formality or informality, and seriousness or jokes. And then the third one is temporal, it means time. This dimension includes the time in hours, days, or history in which communication took place. Okay, that's all about the number 1. And then the second component is source-receiver. In communicating, someone will act as a source, it means communicator, as well as a receiver, it means communicant. Because communication is two-way. So, we send messages when we speak, write, or gesture, and we receive messages by listening, reading, mailing, and so on. Then, what is encoding-decoding about? Encoding is the science of communication about the act of producing messages. For example, speaking or writing. By pouring our ideas into sound waves or into a piece of paper, we transform these ideas into a specific code. And what about decoding? Decoding is the act of receiving a message, for example, like listening or reading, by translating sound waves or words on paper into an idea. Therefore, we name the speaker or writer as an encoder, and the listener or reader as a decoder. Okay, everybody, now let's talk about communication competence. According to Stepbird and Kupat in 1989, communication competence refers to a person's ability to communicate effectively. How is communication effective? This competency includes things such as knowledge about the role of the environment, it means context, in influencing the content. and the form of communication messages. What are benefits of communication effectively? By increasing competence, we will have many choices of behavior. The more we know about communication, the higher our competence. The more options we have for day-to-day communication. This process is similar to the process of learning vocabulary. Namely, the more words we know, the higher the competence of vocabulary we have, the more ways we have to express ourselves. Then, what about messages as a component of communication? The main purpose in communication is to convey a message. Communication messages can take the form of two kinds. The first one is verbal, it means oral or written, as we usually do every day. And then the second one is non-verbal. For example, the clothes we wear, the way we walk, shake hands, shake our head, comb our hair, sit and smile, and in short, everything we reveal in communication. Okay, now talk about channels. What is communication channels? Communication channels are the media through which message pass. Communication rarely takes place via only one channel, but we generally use 2 or 3 or 4 different channels simultaneously. For example, in vector-based interactions, we speak and listen, voice channel, but we also give body cues and receive those cues visually. It means visual channel. We also emit and smell odors, olfactory touch. Often we touch each other. Even this is going to communication. Tactile channel. Okay, that's all about channel. And then the next one is feedback. It is information that is sent back to the source. Feedback can come from ourselves or from others. Feedback from ourselves, when we convey messages, for example, by speaking to others, we also listen to ourselves. And then feedback from others. In addition to this own feedback, you or we receive feedback from others. And then everybody. And the last component is distraction. Interference, noise, is a disturbance in communication that distorts the message. Interference prevents the recipients from receiving the message and the source from sending the message. Disturbance is said to exist in the communication system. This makes the message conveyed different from the message received. This disorder can include physical, physiological, and semantic. And here is a table of definition and example of disorders in communication to facilitate our understanding. Okay, everybody, disruption in communication is inevitable. All communication contains distraction, and although we cannot eliminate it completely, we can reduce distraction and its impact. For this reason, using more accurate language, learning the skills of sending and receiving nonverbal message, and improving listening and receiving skills. And then, of course, sending feedback are some of the way to deal with distraction. Okay, everybody. I think that's all about definition and component of communication. For the next material will be delivered by Mbak Armi.
Thank you, Retno. I'm Armi Rusdian Utami and I'm going to explain about communication purposes and functions, the purpose of studying communication studies, communication within organization, and the last is formal and informal communication. So the first material is about communication purposes and function. There are 5 communication purposes and function. First is to be informed and notify. Example like announcement. Second is assessing input or result, output, or a pattern of thought. Example like respond to an opinion. Third is directing and or directed. For example, the manager directs a work meeting. The third is influence or be influenced. Example, give motivation. The manager give motivation to the staff. The fifth is contain several incidental or neutral function which do not directly affect the achievement of goals and relationship in social interaction. So communication can create a sense of understanding, level acceptance and motivation, especially to answer matters related to who said, on which channel, to whom, and in which effect. Next is the purpose of studying communication studies. According to Ruben and Stewart 2005, there are 5 purposes. First is communication as fundamental in our life. Without communication, we cannot do an activity. Communication plays a very important role in our life. We cannot help but communicate. The second is communication is a complex activity. To achieve communication, competence, understanding, and skills are required so that communication is effective. Third is communication is vital for an effective position. To achieve from a certain position through personal skills and attitudes, interpersonal skills, and the ability to carry out oral and written communication. The fourth is a higher education does not guarantee good communication competence. Many messages in human communication are conveyed not only in verbal but non-verbal form. There are communication in written and oral form. There are communication skills interpersonal or in groups so that we can collaborate as members well. And the last is communication is popular. Currently, communications in our social or behavior, science, and an applied art. This discipline in multidisciplinary relating to other sciences such as psychology, sociology, anthropology, politics, and so on. Next is communication within organizations. There are micro and macro. In an organizational context, there is two-way communication process. Number 1, from message giver to media to message recipient. And number 2, from message recipient to media and to message giver. If only one of them occurs, number 1 or number 2, it is said that one-way communication is occurred. Next is formal and informal communication. First is formal communication. Is official communication that goes through a formal organizational structure network where this information seems to flow in unexpected directions and the network is classified as a rumor. The second is informal communication. In informal communication is the communication that pays more attention of what someone said or heard rather than what the authorities put out. That's all for me. Thank you. And the next material will be presented by Ines.
Okay, I will continue the presentation. Okay, for the next, I will explain about upward communication. Upward communication within an organization can be interpreted as information flows from a lower level to a higher level. Some of the reasons of the importance of the upward flow of communication are based on: first, upward flow of information provides valuable information for decision making by directing the organization and overseeing the activities of others. And number two, upward communication notifies supervisor when subordinates are ready accept what is said to him. And then, why upward communication seems so difficult? The first reason is the tendency for employees to hide their thoughts, and number two, the feelings that supervisor and managers are not interested in employee problem, and number three, lack of appreciation for upward communication by employees. Okay, the next is downward communication. Downward communication is communication that flows from higher to the lower authority. And the criteria of downward communication are first, availability, and second, cost, and three, influence, and for relevance, number 5 is response, and number 9 is expertise. Okay, and the next is horizontal communication. Horizontal communication consists of the delivery of information between peers in the same work unit. And this communication has some purposes. There are to coordinate work assignment and share information about plans and activities. And the third, to solve the problem, to gain mutual understanding, to reconcile, negotiate, and mediate differences, and the last, to cultivate support system charms. Okay, for the next is across communication. This communication is the delivery of peer information that crosses the boundaries, functional boundaries, with individuals who do not occupy a superior or subordinate position. Verbal message allow receiving immediate feedback. Written communication provides notes or permanent references, help provide documentation of the message conveyed. There are some of verbal communication. First, facial expression. The face is a resource of communication because of facial expressions is a reflection of a person's emotional atmosphere. And second is eye contact. Is a natural signal for communication. The third is touch, is a form of personal communication sounds. Moaning, taking a deep breath, crying is also an expression feelings and thoughts of a person that can be used as communication. And the last is gestures, are things that can reinforce a conversation. Okay, and then there are 5 rules of communication. Respect is the first rule. The first rule of communicating effectively, especially in speaking in front of the public, is an attitude of respect and respect for the audience or audience. And the second is empathy. Second rule is empathy, which is the ability to put oneself in situation or condition faced by other people. And the third is audible. The third rule is audible, that is, it can be heard or understood well. And the fourth is clarity. The fourth rule is the clarity of the message or conveyed clarity. This is to avoid misunderstood between two people. And the last is humble. The fifth rule of effective communication is humility. This attitude is an element related to the first law, to build respect to other people, usually based on a humble attitude that is owned. Okay, the next is presentation. Presentation are oral communication or spoken communication or prepared speeches delivered in a formal way. Occurs in a place that are considered public place such as auditorium, classes, and others. There are some things that we can use to prepare our presentation, or some maybe experience to improve our presentation. The first is tend to raise social problems rather than informal problem, and do not structure so that it is usually planned in advance or another agenda which precedes or follows the speaker's appearance. Then using relatively clear norms of behavior. Okay, and then presentation preparation. There are 8 steps in utilizing the subjects of knowledge optimally. The first is listener analysis. The first, we must know who is our audience. And then location review. We must know where is the location that used. So if there are some question from the audience, we can answer the question. Then framework and arrangement, research and application, script writing and notes, serving with tools. So we must really prepare all the tools, so the presentation will be more prepared and serve well. Then practice and exercises. We must practice more to make the presentation well. Then the last is presentation. And then there are some maybe tips or tricks to make our presentation become more well. From Gave, he said that we must begin with a pause, then presenting the first sentence in our memory or in our mind. And the third is maintain eye contact, and then control vocabulary and voice. We are not allowed to use voice that too loud or maybe too weak. And then install the brakes, move naturally, use visual aids effectively, avoid deviations, and summarize the main points. And then there are some opinion from Gumbira Said. He said that the trick is be front, be presentable, be prepared, be relevant, be organized, be receptive, be drunk, and be brief. Okay, maybe that's all they can we explain and can we present. I hope you all can understand our explanation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.